much for the introduction. So it will be really tangible in the sense that you can, if you do it, really get your hands on it, because we will work with toys. So it will be Playmobil, as I said in my introduction this morning. So I guess every one of you knows Playmobil, so I think it's internationally known. Well, another thing that I just want to check in the beginning, who of you has been concerned with digital ecosystems? So who is working with that, spanning across companies? Okay, so that's not too many. So I will give a quick introduction on that. So maybe I'm talking a bit about a problem you don't have, maybe yet. Yeah, because more and more goes into that direction, and more companies want to establish digital ecosystems. And if you have my talk now, then you are hopefully well prepared, as you as software architects might play a very important role in that. And I will tell you during my talk and in my summary why this is. Yeah? So there is this somehow tricky word of digital transformation, in particular in Europe, but I think it's known everywhere. And it causes a lot of confusion, because somehow we are digital since the 50s or so, but now we call it since 10 years digital transformation. And I want to bring a bit more light into that by starting from the left, where we use a different name. And so we try to distinguish that. So the first shift was making products digital. Yeah? So we call this digitization. For example, you go from the old records to compact discs, yeah, in music. And this is also in other areas too. The next one we call digitalization, and this makes processes digital. And this is something different. And what we have here in the music area is that we went from the compact disc to something like the iPod, where the whole processes around acquiring music became digital. And the next thing is that we even digitalized the business models behind it. And this is with the new services like Spotify, for example. Yeah? And so we have this digitalization here now in, or digital transformation in different terms. And that is important, because we will have in the rest of my talk more the focus on the rightmost side. So I have nothing to say about the left side here. It's all about this integrating different business models across companies. And this is also what we see with this term digital ecosystems. This is mainly about new value creation. It's not just about being more efficient, improving your business processes. It's coming to new value, and that is often given by combining different companies in new forms that have not been there before. Yeah? So now I want to familiarize you a little bit with these digital ecosystems, and the first is by giving some examples of that. Yeah? So you can see them in nearly all verticals, so to say. This is in farming. Farming, there's a lot going on, integrating the machines, integrating nutrition, and so on and so on. And companies are getting together there. There's much more tech in farming than anyone thinks about nowadays. It's about mobility. I will come to mobility in a second again. It's about how we work together. Yeah, we work more distributedly. We work across different companies. We even share people in teams, and that has to be supported. In Germany, there's this big industry 4.0. I don't know how familiar you are in the US with that. So this is all about digital production support. Yeah? How to connect your plants, your production plants, and to make that more efficient. It's in health. Yeah? So there's also a lot going on. How the machines in the hospitals are getting connected, how new services are enabled over there. And that is something that we invented, so to say, at our institute, is how to get digital transformation to rural areas where there is way lower people density, and what you have to change compared to smart cities to get something running over there and to make it attractive for people still to live there. It goes to energy, and so we have a broad bandwidth of digital ecosystems that even get connected to each other. Now let's dive a bit deeper into mobility. And if we talk about mobility in Europe and also in the US, this is a lot about cars, of course. In the past and also nowadays, mobility is about cars, and we have users, we are drivers of cars. But what is in this ecosystem, so to say? So there are the manufacturers of those cars. Yeah, they are building the cars, they are selling it, at least till now, with the autonomous vehicles. That might change in the future, as we heard. But there are also part suppliers, other suppliers, and they all somehow want to have the money of that driver of the car. Yeah? And they want to provide something to the driver of the car. Then there are further suppliers for material and tools, and there are all types of service providers. And what we can observe is that in these ecosystems, more and more partnering is happening. In the past, there were strong logistics chains where just one was delivering to the next, and the next was assembling and selling. And now they are rearranging to value networks, and they think how they can get, so to say, the money of the driver or the user of this mobility. And what is now interesting is that also the internet giants like Google, like Apple and Tesla, of course, they go in and they put themselves between the user and the car, so to say, because they have access to the user by being on the mobile phone of the user. And that provides completely new possibilities how to orchestrate all the other companies behind it. And one of the most important advantages in these digital ecosystems is if you are the direct contact to the customer, because you have a lot of control then, what kind of services you are assembling. And if we talk now not only about the car, but about mobility, a lot more is coming in. A lot of mobility service providers, so-called, go in and want to assemble services that include multimodal mobility. Yeah, so you can book at the same time having a rented bike, a rented car, you go a certain leg of your travel, you go by train, and all of that has to be assembled somehow. And that is interesting how you bring that to the user. And this kind of ecosystem and the position now of all these players in that ecosystem is very interesting. But somehow, if we look at it like that, it's not an ecosystem yet that is really supported by IT. Now, companies have to go in and to find their position, what they really connect. And if you attended my last year talk, I talked about a startup of Germany called Caruso. They take a very dedicated part of that connection and provide a digital ecosystem in there with a platform. And I will very briefly recap on that because this makes it easier to explain what I have afterwards for you. So this is Caruso is a data place for or marketplace for data coming from cars. And the idea is to provide data consumers and data providers. So data providers are, for example, all the car manufacturers that have access to cars and that have data from the vehicles. Yeah? So how fast you are driving, what is your mileage, what is your acceleration values, and there are many potentially interested consumers that want to provide to you as the drivers of cars services out of that. For example, insurances, for example, workshops, for example, parts manufacturers. All of them are interested in that data to make the service for you better. So you see, this is part of this overall mobility domain ecosystem here. A very concrete example that you could imagine is you have a tank station, and now let's take Paulo as an example. You are driving a BMW. Yeah? Great for you. So you are driving a BMW and you have an app from this gas station. And here we have BMW, and BMW has a connectivity solution in your cars, and you are willing to share your mileage data with your gas station. And whenever you drive by and this gas station identifies that your tank is nearly empty, they are making you an offering that you get a special deal today. Yeah, and so this is beneficial somehow for all the parties. So BMW gets some money from that, you get a better service, and the tank station gets you to get the gas over there. So this is this idea of ecosystems, that there is something for everyone in the ecosystem. But as you already see, a lot of players are involved, and I made this very, very simple now. But if you really want to design this, it becomes more complicated. And so this is just an overview on that there are many, many different partners in there, of course, with different ideas, with different data. And this is exactly the point of this ecosystem, to group partners around the platform and to grow that, to make it economically successful and to make it attractive for new partners in it. And now we are jumping back to the ecosystems as such, before we come then to the modeling method. Yeah, so what are the challenges in ecosystems? There's a lot of diversity. You are not in your company anymore. Yes, you are cross-company, the companies are different, they have different cultures, they have different people, they have different histories, but now they want to collaborate. And it's the question how to do that. It's about uncertainty. You do not have everything under control anymore, yeah, because you can't dictate what the others in the other companies should do. So that means you have to adapt to them, you have to adjust, and you have to continuously react to what is coming. Yeah? And you never know, so you can make your plans and so on, but there's much more uncertainty in these digital ecosystems than the one that we even have in our companies as software architects, and we even say there's so much uncertainty. Elcho talked a lot about it yesterday, how to come up with the plans for the future and what to do first and next and so on. Here's even much more. Here's something that is very important for us as software architects. In these digital ecosystems, although it's in the hand of many different people and organizations, we need to ensure somehow end-to-end quality. Because in our example of mobility, there's this driver of a car or the person that wants to get transported, and this person relies on quality, on being on time, on having a good user experience and so on. But not a single player in this whole ecosystem can guarantee that. So that means the one that is initiating that ecosystem has to make sure somehow that this end-to-end quality happens, although he cannot really control it. That is very interesting. And then we have these value networks. It's not a logistics chain anymore or a very clear step-by-step process, but it's a value network where many things somehow get to each other. And then we have, of course, complexity, and complexity is caused by many reasons here. Yeah, so we have complexity by the number of companies. In successful ecosystems, it's often dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of companies with hopefully hundreds of thousands or millions or even more users. Yeah, because otherwise, the investment into the ecosystem will not pay off. And finally, it's a lot about data, of course, yeah, because these ecosystems somehow rely on understanding very well what's going on controlling how to evolve that ecosystem and so on. And all of that is challenges that have to be tackled now. And the question is, of course, how? Yeah? And a model that we would like to share with you here is something that we call our ecosystem reference model. And this reference model that goes over different stages of involved parties. Because I said it's always spanning across companies, and so it's the question, what do you do with these different partners and parties in that ecosystem? And the absolute core that you have to look at in digital ecosystems is always threefold. It's not technical only, and it's not business only, it's also legal, because you're spanning company boundaries, so you have to always think for the three things. Yeah? So business aspects, technology to make it happen, and the legal aspects to be safe that everything is legally sound. And then the position that you're taking is first the one for your own organization. Yeah, you need a strategy, what kind of ecosystem do you want to set up, what is your own role in that, and how do you want to make this happen. But then it goes further. Of course, you have the partners. And if you are initiating that ecosystem, you have a lot of challenges. You have to find these partners. You have to get these partners in contact to each other. So this is what we call this matching or matchmaking. And you have to get the business, so to say, running in that ecosystem. Because if there's no business in that ecosystem and the partners are not collaborating, yeah, there's no business for you. Because you, as the initiator of that digital ecosystem, you are the one that hopefully benefits from the others coming together and providing higher value. And then there's something like a community. In our example before, this would be the drivers. Yeah, there's a big community that relies on mobility and that has to be attracted to use all the services around that ecosystem. And you have to think carefully about what they really desire, how they can be motivated, and how you can grow both the community and the partners in your ecosystem. Then there are, of course, also competitors. You have to be very aware of them, because what we can see at the moment is that digital ecosystems, many things at the same time in different constellations, try to grow. Yeah, there are also different marketplaces for data, and all want to gain market share very quickly. And that is something that we also observe in digital ecosystems, that fast growth is one of the most important things to achieve. Yeah, because there's this saying, the winner takes it all somehow, yeah? Because the more partners and the more people of communities are in that ecosystem, the more attractive it gets, and when it's more attractive, more come in, and so this more or less automatically leads to condensation on a very small number. Not necessarily one, but maybe 2 or 3. And an effect that we can see here is, for example, in social networks. So Facebook was very fast in this growth, and although Google has a lot of money, so nearly all the money of the world, they had several tries to come up with another social network, and just a couple of weeks ago they finally killed Google Plus because they were just not successful with that. So that is very important to have a look at that. And then there are these all other known players, the big internet giants again, yeah? So you can never be sure that Apple, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, they don't invade your business here. Yeah? Because these digital ecosystems, they are very attractive also for these parties. And for that reason, you always have to check whether they might go into your business and invade it as well. With that reference model, now we go into this modeling area. And so I'm sorry, this is German here, but maybe some of you can read it. It's called It's Difficult. And this is actually a photo of one of our workshops where we did this with customers. And the thing that we want them to do here is to write down or to sketch what their ecosystem is or what they think their ecosystem is. And this seems very easy at the beginning, because if you finally look at such an ecosystem, you always have the feeling it's very easy to understand it. There are very clear principles and everyone can name them, and it shouldn't be a problem to write that down. Retrospectively, this is most of the time absolutely true. But looking to the future, and you are at the very beginning and you are shaping that, this is very hard. And Paulo mentioned it in the introduction. So this is something that, so the method is something that we created with companies, or we worked with companies, we identified the problems that they had, and then we created the method and we applied it with them together. And the method is something that you also can apply. There is nothing secret in it. I have a lot of material in the further slides, which you will also get afterwards. So now it's difficult. And why is it difficult? It's a good question. So here you get a first glance at our Playmobil, and I will drive you through an example afterwards, how that will look like. If we go to companies, and I'm working for Fraunhofer, Fraunhofer IEC in Kaiserslautern in Germany. We're a software engineering institute. So you might wonder, why are we doing that if we are a software engineering institute? in previous days, we strongly focused on software engineering, but now when we have these digital ecosystems, this business aspect and having this overall big picture becomes more and more important. And this was our motivation to go more in that direction, to also support this phase. When we go to our customers, they often work with methods like design thinking, which is absolutely fine to do that, but it's not guided in the sense of these digital ecosystems and their specific properties. And that might lead to situations that makes it very hard to master the complexity that is behind it. And that is something that we wanted to make differently in our method. We want to be very precise with these specific challenges of digital ecosystems and guide it a lot. And that is the part that will come soon. So if we go there, people want to show us what their ecosystem is. So this is now here our little duck, and the duck is in the egg. And now we are trying to shape that and to visualize it, as we saw yesterday in the talk. And what is now interesting is that if we ask different people to do that, that we get many different things that could be in that egg. And so everyone is somehow showing something about this digital ecosystem, but it's not necessarily the same. It's very varying. So many different animals can be your digital ecosystem here, so to say. And what we also find a lot is that it's very unclear who the partners should be and what their piece of pizza should be, so to say. So everyone should participate in the ecosystem, but it's not clear who gets the biggest piece of pizza, who doesn't get one, maybe. And that is very important to make it attractive. If those partners are not willing to join your digital ecosystem, you have no chance to grow it. What is also interesting in these digital ecosystems is what are the relationships between all these companies here. It's a bit difficult relationship here, and it's not directly visible who is doing what with whom. Another thing that is often not very clear in these digital ecosystems and that you want to get your hands on is what happens if I do something. For example, if I move one of these bricks here. It's nothing with a clear causality where you say, I look at this and this will happen. So we have this problem. And then people really go deeply into it and work on this puzzle and their individual pieces, but somehow they get lost in the big picture. So the big picture is not there, actually. And that is something that we would like to enable. So that brings us to the goal of this method. The goal is, and so we call it the tangible ecosystem design method, to support the modeling of digital ecosystems in interactive workshops. So it's a workshop format with participants that are in charge of the creation of this digital ecosystem. It's not that we do their ecosystem modeling or that we design their ecosystem, but they are doing it. But we are facilitating it by bringing it into a well-structured order and having the right modeling techniques to really make the important things visible. What's also important is this is not the method to really invent the ecosystem if you have no idea. So if you have no idea, then you need some more creativity up front to guide you into the direction of what your digital ecosystem could be. And now let's go into this modeling. So the first thing that we are doing is the ecosystem purpose. And there we have such a sheet where we can say our ecosystem supports some groups of people or companies to achieve something by increasing some certain thing and by reducing some other certain thing. So it's kind of a structured way of writing that down. And this is just for the very beginning to align the expectations and the ideas that people have towards this ecosystem idea that they are shaping. And so what you can find there is that in the beginning of this workshop, there's often a very strong diversity. So this is what I had with this egg metaphor. So although these people said, we worked on this for months, and we are nearly done, and we just want to check with you whether everything is clear. We go there, give them this simple task like that, write it on a number of cards, and something completely different comes out of it. And this is interesting to observe, because those people have been sure before that they are well aligned, that they have well understood what they are doing, but because of all these complexities and things that no one has ever thought of, the ideas are very different. And then we go in what we call the service blueprint. This is in the absolute heart of the ecosystem. So what is the key ecosystem service that connects the different parties with each other? And here we have this so-called service blueprint, which consists of 4 areas: the user actions, the interactive system actions, and then behind the line of visibility, so to say, what happens inside the software systems and what has to happen without any software interaction. And I will give you an example now for that. And this is, of course, not an example of one of our customers, because they are confidential. So what we are using here is the ecosystem service of Amazon Video, because there is a lot of public information how this is working. We also did not do that for Amazon, to make that clear, but we just did this for us to have a good example to use it in the workshops and to explain the methods. Yeah? And now you can look at that, and you can fill in this canvas here, and you can write a lot of text on it. And this might be understandable, but what is this not here? It's not tangible. This is just pieces of paper and Post-its, as maybe other methods do it, but it's hard to memorize, it's hard to get if you just look at it. And what we now introduced, and we thought a lot how to do that, and which kind of visualization or tangibilization so to use. And finally we ended up with Playmobil. And we bought Playmobil for a lot of money. So we are not sponsored by Playmobil. So we just bought that to use it in our workshops. And we have a lot of persons here. We have a lot of cars there. Oh, sorry. Now it works again. And now we come back to this one here. And now you see the fully fledged modeling with Playmobil of our Amazon Video service. And I will guide you through that a little bit now, what we did there, so that you get the feeling of the level of granularity of this modeling. Yeah, and we start in the upper left here. And so I'm sorry for the German text here. I will just explain what is written on here. So there's the family, and they want to look at something together. So they want to have a video evening and watch a movie. And there might be other situations with Amazon Video. So someone wants to go into a business trip, and he is a bit reluctant, and so wants to get a blockbuster to take with her on this business trip. And then is on the business trip, waiting for a bus, and still can watch the video here. And you see, we have a lot of material, and this has not a specific meaning. But people are really creative in selecting stuff from all these boxes and making clear what is their intention to model here. Yeah? And of course, this needs a bit more recording than what is written down here. So therefore, we typically make a video recording of the people explaining what they modeled here, which is then typically a 3 minutes video or so. And then the person can lie in the hotel bed and continue watching the video. Yeah, and finally, in the experience, there might be the situation to rate this movie. Yeah? And all of these different aspects have been modeled in this area of the user actions. Yeah? So this was this uppermost area. And now I guide you through to the other areas that have been modeled, yeah, from the user actions to the user systems interactions to what is beyond, below. And now we go that way down here. And we had this situation where they want to watch a movie together, and from there they wanted to ask Amazon what movie is recommended. So the robot here, the robot can make this recommendation to our family. And then there's some computational intelligence behind it who comes up with all these wonderful ratings and recommendations and what might be the best one for this company in that situation. And so we have this fancy guy here. And behind that, there are a lot of people standing. So we are now in the area that has nothing to do with IT, that made all the contracts with the film studios, with the people delivering the movies to Amazon Video, all the things that has to be done before actually the video content can be delivered. Yeah? And all these aspects are somehow important now in our digital ecosystem of Amazon Video. It goes from all the users to the film studios. It goes to internal aspects of Amazon, like developing these recommendation systems, and so on and so on. And this is our initial service modeling, so to say here. Now here you see the full service map. And then we go down and we model now the service with all the involved organizations and what is going on between these organizations, to understand this better. This is what we do in this so-called service map. And now you see also our vehicles come into play. It's not only the persons anymore, it's the vehicles in here. And the vehicles, in contrast to the persons, stand for organizations in our modeling technique. Yeah? So the Playmobil persons are people or roles of people, and the vehicles here are all different organizations. So far, we had a quite open modeling technique. Yeah? So it's more or less left to your creativity how you model. Now, when we go to the service map, we have a more restricted, so to say, modeling view. Yeah, like in architecture modeling, it's clear what are the modeling elements and what are the relationships between them. This is all guided now. And I will bring that to you. In the center is now the service provider, so the one who wants to create that service involving all these parties and the community. And the service provider has hopefully consumers of that service, and these consumers can be either B2C, which are persons again, or it can be B2B, that means other organizations. And then the service provider might rely on other things that are delivered to him to make that service happen. For example, resource providers, B2B, or resource providers, C2B, or some support providers. So anything else that might be necessary to do that. And what is also interesting in this sense of end-to-end thinking is that your digital ecosystem modeling might not end at the point of your consumers, but there might be consumers behind that consumer again. Yeah? And in this ecosystem, to really get this end-to-end understanding why this ecosystem works or not, you might even go there and model that that you get the full understanding. And even that one might have further consumers. And another level that we have here is then the so-called platform level. Yeah, so this is a single service, and there might be many ecosystem services on one platform. But there might be also platforms that have only one ecosystem service. I will show you in the Amazon example in a minute what that means there, but there might be also one-to-one relationship. And you might have competitors, and we symbolize them here with these speedboats. So hopefully they are not faster than you. Now we go to the service map, and we throw all that companies on it, so to say. Yeah, here you see the film studios, and you see some persons here. You see Amazon itself. You have something like PayPal, and so on. And now we group it in that way that we put the business unit that is creating Amazon Video in the center and have all the others around. And look now what is happening. Down there you see our legend to make for all the people in the workshop clear what are the meanings of these different vehicles and what are the meanings of the lines that we are drawing between them soon. Yeah? And the absolute core thing now is what we draw in black, and this is the core asset flow, how we call it. Yeah? And the core asset flow here is about videos. Yeah? There are videos, they go from the film studios to Amazon Video and they go to the consumers. So that's what everything is about. Yeah? Now you again might say, yeah, that was clear, but you can't imagine how often we sit in these workshops and it's absolutely not clear what is the stuff behind the black lines here. And then we go further, and the blue things now added here are all kinds of key data flows that are necessary to make these things happen. So for example, some context information about the movies, like what age can this movie be watched from, then some ratings, which is data, yeah. Even the apps themselves might be data that come to the users, and so on and so on. So maybe some bills going there. You do not have to see now everything what is in there. It's only about the modeling technique here. And then we have another color. This is the green one here, and the green one is for money flows. That does not define the absolutely detailed business model there, but it gives you an idea of what kind of money is flying between which kind of company here. And this is extremely important to note that down even at that level here. Yeah, here we have, for example, here they are paying 50 cents per movie. Here they are paying 100 million euro per year flat rate. It's completely different way how to interact. But it's so important to understand these end-to-end implications of these money flows. Because we have seen ecosystems where if you look at each single piece of it, it sounds reasonable. But if you look at a big picture and the whole chain of money flow, you directly see that this business model cannot work at all. Therefore, it's so important to include it here. Yeah? And then the final thing in red is more the legal aspects. What are the contracts that are made between all these companies to make that happen? So there are contracts between the person who has this Amazon Video. There are contracts with the film studios. There is a contract with PayPal and with all these other parties. And by that, we have now all these different aspects from the core asset flow over the data flow, over the money flow, over the contracts made that make up these relationships between the companies in that ecosystem. And then we come to our final one, and this is the motivation matrix. So this is another guided technique that we invented or somehow adapted here to check now whether it's really reasonable and attractive for all these parties in that ecosystem to work with each other and to join that ecosystem. And here we have another canvas, and we put here the players on both axes, and the blue fields always say what are their own advantages, and with these yellow arrows we indicate what those guys really get from each other, yeah, and why they are in. Yeah, and then we end up with a matrix. So that's me in a real workshop that we did. And so we end up with this matrix hopefully filled in somehow, because if this matrix is too sparsely filled, so yeah, then no one has a benefit from the others being in there. And here you see it for the Amazon example again. And here all these yellow post-its are then the points that are in favor of benefiting from this other party being in the ecosystem. And we found here really interesting effects that the company initiating the ecosystem was so egoistic, so to say, that they had all the benefits on their side, which sounds nice, of course, but if these other parties don't participate, then they do not have any benefit at all. Then they invested all the money for building the platform, but then there is nothing. Yeah? So that is very important to check end to end what are the benefits and the motivations of all these parties. And then finally, we have what we called the ecosystem map. And in the example for Amazon, we did this for Amazon Video, but there might be other services and they might be connected to that one here. Yeah? As I said, it's not necessarily the case that there are many services in such an ecosystem. Maybe there's only one. But if you really want to extend it, there might be others that are related. And then, of course, there are many upcoming challenges how to connect them properly. But this is not part of my talk today. So what I would like to finish with is that picture here. Now I'm coming back to you. So what is now in for you? Yeah? If you are in ecosystems somehow responsible, then I think this is a very good technique for you to master that complexity. Yeah? And buying Playmobil is probably not too hard for a company that wants to come up with an ecosystem, so there should be money for Playmobil. Yeah, and there are all these canvases, and then you can make it tangible. And software architects, from their profession and their education, as I said, they are trained in this end-to-end thinking. They are hopefully trained in modeling context, yeah, as we discussed yesterday in Elcho's tutorial. And there are a lot of things that are in their competencies or capacity maps that are very helpful here. But not all architects, in particular the ones that are too technical, are already suited for these tasks. That I also have to say. Yeah, so that might be also a development possibility for you to see these things as something where you can contribute in your future career and develop into that, because you can strongly broaden your impact with that. You can go much more into the direction of business aspects, and you can form much more how the overall company develops and in which direction it goes. And if you're not in ecosystems at all, then you still might get something out of it, because this understanding of context of your software system, even in your own company only for not ecosystem system, strongly benefits, I guess, from this big picture thinking. Yeah, and there might be many aspects in it that you can easily transfer to that area. So with that, I'm finished here, and I'm happy to receive your questions and then also discuss over lunch with you. Thanks a lot.
Questions? Comments? I have one.
Yes.
So in addition to having a nice model and technique to model digital systems and to have the best environment for bring your child to work, I suppose, now, would you be able to use this in a regular IT system? I don't know, chain supply system, ERP system? Have you guys thought about that?
We have not done it there, but I think there are definitely opportunities to do that.
And value? Bringing value?
I think the first thing you can start with is modeling the context. Yeah. So modeling the context is something that gets more and more, because systems are more and more connected to each other. Yeah? There's more IoT things. There are more companies connected, even if it's not an ecosystem. And for that, I think it's definitely valuable to do it. If you really go inside the system, and if you have to model the architecture, so to say, then it might be not that worthwhile to do it like that, because it's really at this level of the relationships of people and of companies.
I'd say it's still a perspective on the architecture, because it's modeling an aspect of the solution. So.
Yeah. So, further questions?
Thank you. So the first thing is, let's say if you have services which are within departments or business organizations,
Yeah.
and you don't have a figure in numbers or money what something would cost. Do you have also a technique to model this, or to have a, let's say, a rough estimate?
So we actually do not have a method for that, but your point is extremely valid in the sense that we ran several times into situations where most of the discussions were about the relationships of internal organizational units of companies. Yeah? So they look at this new ecosystem in a way that is completely realized with the current organizational structure. And this is a big trap, to be honest, because then you are more concerned with your own organizational structure and how to do the internal billing than caring about the outside part of the ecosystem and get the partners attracted. And we would rather recommend there to see this as optional to keep the old organizational structure and to rather think for new ones. Of course, there might be still that challenge that you are asking for, but for this detail, we do not have a guided solution.
Okay. Thank you. Then second question, sorry. Is
Go
there
ahead.
a training to learn this method?
Actually, yes. We just did this parallel to this to this one here in Glasgow at the HCI conference. So my department head colleague Markus Trapp, he's doing a lot of these trainings at most of the time rather research or research practitioner conferences. Just have a look around, and it's typically a one-day training. They bring all this Playmobil with them and then have a guided training and really do it for an example.
Let's thank Matthias and go to lunch. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.